it's really good to run through this stuff, Mark. It's really important that people do this kind of hard work, do this math, and we're good to understand like what is really going to take to close deals. Because marketing is about closing deals. It's not just getting them in the door.
That's right. It's a process, not an event.
Right, right. That's talk about that a little bit because I got to use that. I got to write that down.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Mark Osborne with us today. And Mark, no one knows Mark better than Mark. So Mark, we need the backstory. Bring us up to speed and we'll get into the conversation.
Absolutely, Richard. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I've been fortunate enough that I've spent 25 years more in my career where my hobby is also my job. But it's changed a lot over years. But I've spent all 25 years in marketing sales, as I call it, the persuasive arts, and spanning everything from two guys in a garage startups to multinational, multi-billion corporations. And everything in between, and spanning roles from kind of brand strategy, like really thinking through that alchemy of how you get people excited about a product, to the product marketing and kind of those revenue operations, sort of the guts and infrastructure of how you run a marketing operation, and even running 8-9-figure sales teams with salespeople all over the country, and running really large teams. So I've been fortunate enough to see lots of different aspects. From lots of different perspectives. And what I'm really passionate about and where I spend my time today is working with, sort of those small business owners. And I say small, like the guys growing from, 1 million up to 100 million. And I have seen so often that they don't have access to the kind of marketing and sales kind of leadership and sort of know-how that they need in order to, kind of get the best results for their business. And I'm really passionate about helping, entrepreneurs and founders get the best results. And unfortunately, good ideas don't sell themselves. And no matter how good you are at servicing your clients, if no one knows about it, you'll have fewer and fewer clients. And so I love taking the passion and capability and sort of expertise that other people have and helping them connect that with the marketplace. And that's where I spend my time today.
I love it. I love it. You make a really good point right off the bat here. And I remember when in my first business, service business, building water features and sculptures and all this stuff I had the saying, I'm the best and no one knows it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I used to always say. I was doing great, but man, I could have taken over the world. No one could touch what I did. I'm like, no, it's on the grand scheme. No one knows. And marketing was never my thing. Okay. I always tell people, I don't think normal. I don't think like regular people. I'm so odd. I can't do marketing because I'll get like one customer in a year. Okay. With my marketing. I'd really like them. Okay. But it wasn't going to feed the family, so
that's right.
It's really great when you get someone with like your passion and your ability to create messages, right? Then we can talk about branding and messaging and the whole big package, but it's really a critical element and it's incredibly difficult for my service and trades guys like us. We're doers.
Yeah.
Right. We do the work. Maybe we got crews and we got things like that, but we're out there kind of really doing our craft, honing our craft and putting this together. So first thing, we're trying not to do every single thing in the business, but then you want to put marketing on top of that.
Right.
Oh, it's just a nightmare, right? I mean, you have to have seen that a lot. It's just, I don't know. And I've been up and down the whole good marketing, bad marketing, good people, bad people. It's like anything, right? There's, what's the old saying? What do they call the guy who graduates last in his medical class? Doctor. So it's like that's marketing. Okay. It's the same thing. So you could get the best of the best. You can get Mark Osborne, or you can get some turd. Okay.
Sometimes, well, and unfortunately, though, at least that, last of his class did graduate from medical school
It's true.
before he could call himself doctor. Unfortunately, in the marketing and sales space, there's so many, um, snake oil salesmen that essentially, like, they decided one day that they were a marketer, and they hung out a shingle and started telling everyone that, and they just said it more loudly and more often and more confidently than other folks, and they got people to believe them. And in fact, not only that, but even the agency space is kind of a mechanism, and I've worked for agencies for years, and that's kind of why I don't run an agency today. It's this mechanism of, promise the world and then get them in and then do as little as possible to keep them from leaving, knowing that there's sort of switching costs and there's pain in leaving. And so you can actually do a whole little
Yeah.
and still keep them around just because they don't want to go through the pain of searching, talking to other people, can't tell the difference between them, go with one and then wind up getting disappointed again. It's a real thing that I hate about my industry, but unfortunately it is what it is.
Yeah. There's another aspect. There's a very low barrier to entry to be a marketer.
That's right. That's
It
right.
doesn't take much. Okay. So you're right. And I've seen so much, they get pretty jaded.
Yeah.
So if guys have been in business 5 years, 10 years, and you've kind of run through and, oh, they're going to post stuff on Facebook. Oh, they're going to do all this simple stuff. You think it's 500, but then you're still doing all the work for them.
That's right.
Give them all.
That's right.
So we've gone through the whole thing, right? So it's really important. That's what I want to talk to you about, because when we talk about target marketing and we talk about an industry, okay,
Hmm.
so like I said, we'll kind of stick with the service and trades industry, right? So
Sure.
guys are building homes, or plumbers, or HVAC guys. Now they got to make a reach, and normally they're local. They have a region or a small region. Yeah, there's bigger companies that do things nationally, but majority of our people they're 3 to 5 million a year, 10 million,
Yep.
15 million. They're really killing it. Maybe they get up to 20. But my goal with them when I'm coaching my people is always like, well, I just want you, whatever your region is, if you're in a 30 square mile radius, 50, dominate it.
That's right.
You need to be if you could just do that, like, forget
That's
about
right.
taking over the world, take over your region and dominate it. And you're going to sit back and go, man, that's pretty good. I don't know if I need the whole world.
That's right. Your slice is enough. And I'll tell you the secret to that from a marketing and sales perspective, and you hit on this actually earlier, which is you talked about, if I go out and try to talk to people like me, I'm going to get one customer a year because you're sort of a unique person and you have a unique perspective. And that's part of what makes you a great craftsman, is that perspective. But that's the secret to dominating your market, is to not say, well, my customers are just like me. So how would I want to be marketed to? How would I want to be sold to? Instead, really get into the mind of the area that you service and think about, well, this neighborhood up here or is like this, and this neighborhood over here is like this. And maybe you even have different offerings for the high-end houses that might have different needs versus the more budget cautious neighborhoods, and not only different offerings that would be your sort of way of getting in and working with them, but even different ways of framing it and positioning. These folks, it's about having the luxury that you deserve, sort of the sort of gains to be created, if you will, to use a little marketing speak. And these folks down here, it's more of, don't find yourself, sweating your ass off. Sorry, pardon my language. And this summer, do the things that you need to do up front to ensure that you're avoiding those pains. And just thinking through that lens of the customer is really the way to dominate those markets, as you say.
Yeah, I really like that. We do a lot in, just kind of creating that avatar. Who's your
Hmm.
ideal customer, the ICP, the
That's
ideal
right.
client profile. And when you dig in deep, and I tell them, you need to know your customers better than your customers know themselves.
That's right.
Sounds cliche, but once you figure that out, who you truly want to serve, I change businesses completely just by that alone. Instead
That's
of,
right.
you cannot serve everybody. You should not want to serve everybody.
That's right.
Not everybody is going to want you, whatever. Find out who it is. Who are your best customers? Let's build that out. What if you only dealt with your best customers? All your customers were
Right.
your best customers, right? And how about we do that? Okay. So
Yeah.
like you're really happy. All right. And they're paying, you're not chasing money, you're doing all the good things, right? And some people, Mark, like in some businesses, and I'm just being real here, some are
Sure.
never going to do that because that's not what they are. They're chasing the bottom dollar. They have a mindset. They're the low bidder. They're
Yeah.
beating people on price. And I just smile and say, keep going. I love it. I love you seeing that because you're never going to affect me.
Well, and that's right. And because they can't continue to operate forever.
No.
So they have a limited lifespan. The other thing too is that, if they're always chasing that lowest bid, then they aren't able to invest in the things that makes their service better. Whether it's, faster time to respond to inquiries by setting up some technology that,
Mm-hmm.
either on their website or, through SMS texting or whatever it might be, things that make it more convenient for the customer. They can't invest in that if they're constantly chasing that lowest bid. And as a result, once the customer comes to expect that that's the minimum level, those folks are out of business.
Yep.
And that's why it's important to have those margins, not just so that you can make more on each job, but so that you then have the resources to invest in your operations.
Yeah. And I tell them it's so you can serve at a higher level.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
what it's really. I'm like, yeah, we all want to reinvest in our business, everything else, but I truly want to serve at the highest level
That's
because
right.
there's a way higher level of satisfaction and appreciation from those clients. Like you, people think because people have a lot of twisted ideas on money and people who are wealthy and whatever they are, but the higher end clients, they don't get like they really appreciate what you do when you do it well. Like
Yeah.
you're give them a world class experience, like that thing, man. They who do you think they run around with?
Yeah. That's right.
Not the budget people. They talk, because of that kind of stuff. So you're able to serve at that level, and I always found that because I did that. Right, all
Yeah.
my stuff was night, and I did it in a number of different ways, but it just made the work so much more satisfying that I did. And now to flip it back to like marketing. So back in the day, it was like print ads, right? You would see in a
Sure.
magazine and all this kind of stuff. So you have all these different ways. Didn't have these tools we have today.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I still was in business obviously when we started, these things started happening with the, internet, with marketing, the website, the wild west of all that crazy that was going on back then in the early 2000s and paying a gazillion dollars for a website and all this stuff you get done for like $100 now. I was paying
Sure.
40 grand. You know what I mean? So it's just really cool to watch the evolution of marketing
Hmm.
because I've been kind of a basically an observer, a dabbler. I go in, I learn more. I want to have enough knowledge so I can kind of smell you know, I can smell what's good, smell what's bad. Okay. I know what's
Yeah.
burning. I know what's going to be good to eat. I want to have that general knowledge. So let's talk about that a little bit because I think some people are so anti, like I could almost be, that they just ignore it
Yeah.
and they just keep plugging along word of mouth. And there's nothing wrong with word of mouth. Always good. Always need to be an element of what you do. But if you try to be 100% on that, that's when you're going to have a little bit of a roller coaster because things are going to, they're going to constrict and they're going to expand and they're going to go up and down like that. And when you're word of mouth, you're going to be the accordion when it comes to money.
Sure.
It's going to be in and out, right? So give us a little bit on that viewpoint.
So, one of the principles of marketing is, or persuasion and communication is, you got to meet people where they are. And so I'll actually use that principle in talking about, sort of marketing and sales systems for folks that are thinking, I just want to rely on word of mouth. That's a fine place to start in how you build your program. If
Mm.
you've got enough mouths that you're already in, that you can rely on. But here's how we take that up a notch. How do we make it easier for folks to make referrals for you? By giving them snippets of testimonials from other folks, by giving them special offers that they can share with people, by giving them some incentive to share those special offers, by making it easily forwardable, by giving them a site that shows all of your great reviews that they can share out with their friends, by giving them calendars, tchotchkes, things that they can share around. That's how we facilitate that word of mouth. How else do we do that? Well, by hitting them at the right time. So you don't ask them for a referral when you first start the project because they don't know if you're going to be any good. And you don't ask them for a referral 3 years later because they've forgotten if you were any good. Instead, time it for the exact moment when they're thrilled with what you just delivered. That's the moment at which you say, hey, you know what? We rely on word of mouth because we want to stand on our excellent work. Can you think of 3 people that might benefit? And I'll give you a discount for on your next project in exchange for for every referral you give me. And I'll give them a discount as being your friend and the benefit that you can pass along to them. Now you start to create some mechanisms that make word of mouth really work and supercharge rather than just, well, I rely on word of mouth. And not only that, but as part of this word of mouth, might as well ask for a testimonial at the same time. And then make sure that you're putting it in all the places that people look so that it gets surfaced on your Google My Business listing or whatever it might be. Maybe create an automated program that as soon as someone finishes a project, they get sent a survey that asks them how happy they were. If they said that they were a 5-star happiness, you immediately send them a link to the Google My Business where they can leave that testimonial, and then it's out there for the whole world to see it. You can automate all of those things so that it all happens in the background behind you, and it's perfectly timed and it's perfectly executed. That's how you really, pour the gas on word of mouth referral and that type of process that can be really effective.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. I think, and that's one of the advantages of today in technology. Back before we literally had to like stand over their shoulder while they wrote a testimonial. Well, you're never getting it. Okay, it's like you write a book. It's a bestseller, and I got like 12 reviews. No,
That's
no one
right.
cares behind it, but no one's going to take the 5 minutes or the 5 seconds to write a review. And a couple good points you made. One is when they're happiest,
Yeah.
when they're handing you over the final check, they're happy.
Right.
Okay, if they're not, you better hand it back to them and say, "Well, how can I make this right?" Okay,
That's right. That's right.
just an ethics thing. Okay, so I was just like, but now with the technology, you can hear. You just go right here, and you can have them pull up their phone. They're walking with their testimonial machine.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
always with them, and just show them how. See, just go here, click that, click that. Yeah, talk to text, whatever you want to do, just put that in there. That'd be awesome because it is the new word of mouth. The Google reviews, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and they matter, right? They're
Yeah.
really important. Like you said, you can share them with other customers. I use them. I have my clients use them in content email.
That's
Like,
right.
hey, here's the last three. We last 3 jobs. Here's what they said. Here's a little video. Here's this. Like, and this is where a lot of people drop the ball. And you made mention of this is I call it LPV, lifetime profitable value. Okay. Okay. I came in, I put a roof on their house. I got a roofing business. Great. I'm not going to say, well, see you in 30 years. Like,
Right.
here, come back. I'm like, what? Why would you ever say that? I mean, guys literally say that. I'm like, no. What I do, and I was telling someone the other day, part of my warranty was a free yearly inspection of our work. I'll come in, I'll get on the roof, I'm going to take a look at everything. We'll be here. I'll let you know when we're coming. Everything else, boom. Well, it's not. It's an inspection, but what it really is a sales call.
That's right.
Oh man, your windows are looking a little bit. I mean, your siding's kind of coming off. Like, have anyone talked to you about that? What do you, how can I serve you? Right? They're worth another $100,000 to me.
Well, and there's another point of view that from an operations perspective, if you're a roofer, you should only be a roofer because you don't want to invest in all the equipment that sits unused while you're doing roofs and it's a point of view. But here's the thing, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't still do that annual call for 2 reasons. One, you can develop relationships with window people that all they do is windows, and you can make those referrals to them, and they make the roofing referral to you. You can have this network of folks that are out there doing it, and maybe you even give each other a little bit of incentive monetarily on it. Or two, that annual inspection gives you a chance to say, you still happy with it? Who else do you know
It
that
is.
might be in need of a refresher? Do you happen to know your neighbor there? I noticed that his roof is actually starting to decline a little bit. If you've been happy with us, an introduction would really go a long way. Like, what an opportunity to really expand and develop that relationship.
Yeah, it's so true. It's that front of mind. Listen, no one, because I always tell people, I go, listen, I'm in the roofing business. I can guarantee you, no one wants to put a new roof on their house.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And they don't need it today.
That's right.
All right. So you have to understand as part of the sales process, it's like, okay, and they're going to cut a check for 15,000, 20,000, $30,000, whatever for a roof. Not excited. Although it does cover their probably largest personal investment
Right.
that they have, but they kind of, that doesn't work on sales either. Okay.
That's
It's
right.
good to mention, but it doesn't make them pull the trigger. So that front of mind, that returning, that element of service, like you said, is going to get neighbors, is going to get someone from church, is going to get someone they work with. And that's one of those keys too, Mark. You don't say, do you know anyone?
That's right.
Because it opens the giant Rolodex and they can't think of anybody.
That's right.
Like a church. They
Yeah.
went and they go, oh yeah, Mrs. So. That's how you kind of categorize them and you help them
Or
dial it
that
in.
neighbor right there that I can
Yeah,
see
that's
needs
the
some
good one.
roofing.
you know,
That's right.
hailstorm just came. These people need
That's right.
inspections, but yeah. So it's just on the personal recommendation, the testimonies, the referrals, the word of mouth and stuff. It's very when people are starting a business, that's what I hammer. Like you do that, you have to be the most relational building individual around. Don't get so caught up in your work that's all you care about. You got to care about the customer.
Well, and if you think about it too, so what are you up against? So just as you described, they don't need it right now. And there's an old adage, 95% of your market is not in market at any given time. It's only that 5% that just discover they have a leak. And so you could spend a whole lot of money buying radio ads and TV ads and newspaper ads to constantly be top of mind with all of your potential customers so that when they do notice that leak, you're the person they call. But that's really expensive. How much less expensive is it for you to do an annual drop by? And the reason I say that is because their perspective of why am I going to go drop by somebody that I know doesn't need my service? I just did it a year ago and they're not going to need it for 30. Well, because it's a lot less expensive to do that drop by and ask for an introduction to the neighbor across the way than it is to buy all of those TV ads and radio ads and newspaper flyers and inserts and mailers and all that stuff than to just build those relationships.
And you're right, because I've done all those things, Mark, and
I
I've got
bet.
nothing from them. eighty
I
thousand
bet.
in radio ads. Okay, let me show you my level of stupid. Okay, that
Okay.
I operated at. All right, so I did like 80 grand of radio ads. Now I'm a water feature builder.
Okay.
So picture waterfalls and fish and
Yeah.
sculptures and all this stuff. Right now, I'm thinking I just want to be on like AM radio because I love all talk shows and all this stuff, and I'm meeting all these people. But I'm advertising. I'm gonna get a ton. They give you all the stats, right? How you're just
Sure.
gonna kill it. Well, 80,000 later, I got one phone call from some nut job. Okay, I got rid of it in about 60 seconds, and I'm like, and that's when it came to me because again, I'm a Marine, so we're a little slow on the uptake. But I'm like, oh, I know I'm a visual business. You have to see a water. You can't talk about a waterfall, right? That's not going to be. But when you see it, that's how I sell. I just put my portfolio in front of people, and
Yeah.
I've done 1,000 of these, and they're going through, going, they're all amazing. Okay, well, what should we do? But that was one of those lessons. And the big joke, Mark, was I got a coffee cup from the radio station, you
Uh-huh.
know, and
$80,000 coffee cup.
yes, and it was a few years ago when it finally I dropped it and it broke, and my wife's like 80 grand. 80 grand.
Right
I was
there.
just good for nothing. Now we got nothing, because that was our standing joke for a long time. 80,000 for a coffee cup. Amazing. So yeah, you gotta, but it that too, that thing, like I didn't even think of that. And I'm like an artist. I
Right.
like build world class stuff. I don't think like the visual aspect is what people buy my stuff because visually it appeals to them.
Well, and going back to that, sort of idea of it's a low barrier to entry for someone to call themselves, a marketing consultant or a sales consultant. There are so many tools out there. Radio is a tool.
Mhm.
Buying ads on Facebook is a tool, and there's a lot of people that say they're craftsmen with that tool, and or this website or that website, or building this or building that, and all of them will try to convince you that there is the one thing that's going to be the silver bullet. And that's why, business owners, if they don't have that sort of capability themselves, they need to develop it or find an advisor that can help them evaluate, of all the things that I could do, what is the thing that is the right tool that's actually going to deliver results for me? Because otherwise they run the risk of, having $80,000 coffee cups.
Yeah, I just think about that as you mentioned that. It's like, where do you go? How do you know? Who are you talking to? Are you, because there's an easy way to do things, and that's attach a number to it. What's the
Sure.
ROI? I
That's
put
right.
in three and I get out six. I put in three and get out one. Like what's the ROI? And now, not saying everyone's going to tell you, for real, but you really have to look, I think, from your niche, where who you're serving, how you're serving them. Start to really put that together and go, okay, now if I drop 1,000 a month or 5,000 a month on this advertising, now no marketing is right now, because you had a good point. 3% of the market is a now buyer right now.
That's right.
97%, they got time. So if you think you're not going to make your ROI on the 3%,
That's right.
okay, you're going to make it on the 97%. And that's not right now. So what is that sales cycle? Right? Is it
Oh,
3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, right?
and those are not sort of simple things, for someone that, I can't put on a roof, but I can help someone think through that marketing. And I would wager that most of, your audience, they know people that are good business advisors. And that's always my recommendation to folks is talk to someone that doesn't have a vested interest in you doing a specific thing. So if I make my money selling you radio airtime, chances are I'm going to tell you radio is the best place
Yep.
to spend your dollars. But an advisor like myself, that I don't, I spend free time with, my clients to help them understand, well, what is it that they're trying to do? Then what might be the best way to do it? And then am I the right person to help you do that thing? That's the type of advisor they need to, sort of seek out and build a relationship with, because then it's someone that like I don't want to get involved with something that I'm not an expert in,
Right.
but I know how to sort of know the boundaries of my expertise and then point them towards, what, I think you would be well suited to buy some radio ads, and I happen to know a guy that works on a station that I think would be a good fit for you, and that's the right place for you to go. And in the same way that the roofer that doesn't really do windows wants to send his client to the window expert when that's what they need. It's that same kind of thing, but you have to seek those advisors out.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mark, because I think the issue is, when people want to market, now kind of drill down on this a little, we'll kind of workshop this a little bit in this exact thing. It's when I work with some of my customers, it's like, well, what's the actual outcome
Right.
that you're looking for? And I don't think they think about that. They just think it's going to be more work.
Right.
And then we do more work and make more money. Do you?
Right.
Okay, because whatever you're spending, okay, that's coming off the next job that you get from that ad.
Right.
Okay, so you got to understand, like, you're not really running the numbers on what really is the outcome. What am I looking to do? Am I looking to gain ground and take territory?
Right.
Am I looking just to increase revenue? Oh, wait, I should think about profit, because anyone can make revenue. Okay. So how much of that do I get to keep? So you're thinking about that, again, the cost of all this stuff. So as we drill down on this, these are all questions you can literally sit at your desk, workshop with that advisor.
That's right.
Anyone, it could be your wife, right? It could be your lead guy. I don't care who it is, but like, start to bounce that around and get some feedback from someone, like you were saying, more than usual. You want to have someone who has no emotional attachment to your business.
That's right.
Okay, because as entrepreneurs, we make a lot of bad decisions.
Not only an emotional attachment to the business, but a an outcome that biases them in some way. Like if I'm selling Facebook ads, chances are I'm going to tell you you should buy Facebook ads. Or if I'm selling agency work that makes those ads for you on Facebook, of course I'm going to tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the other thing, and you brought up something that I think is worth mentioning, is you talked about what's the outcome that you're looking for, and we talked earlier about sort of there's different aspects to driving revenue. You have to attract leads, but as we said, 97% of those folks aren't ready to buy right now. So you got to in some way nurture them. And I see all the time that folks will run a radio campaign or some campaign where, we've got this special offer, call now. They get all these, phone numbers, email addresses from people in their area that are interested, but they're not ready to buy right now. And then they do not, they take the call, and when they're like, I'd like to learn more, and they tell them about the offer, and then goodbye. If they didn't buy on that moment, they never talk to them again. You got to find the leads, then you got to nurture them until they move into that 3% where they're ready to buy. And then you got to actually transact with them and close the deal, help them through that process of understanding the value they're going to get. Then you got to ask for those referrals and testimonials and all those. Each of those different stages, there are different tools that you do for there. It's not like you just buy ads and you get a customer that, goes through the whole cycle. You need tools to help you with each of those cycles. You need advisors to help you with each of those, aspects of the cycle, and really thinking through what is it I'm trying to do, and then where is my process breaking down. That's how you think about where to make those strategic investments that really pay off.
Yeah, that's awesome. And here's the thing, like 9 out of the 10 things you just said are all done before you engage a marketer.
Yeah, that's
Like
right.
you got email, you got an autoresponder. How are you
Right,
going to
that's
service
right.
these people? How are you going to keep the contact? Who's doing the follow-up calls? And
That's
not
right.
one or two, the 17 you're going to need to make.
That's right.
Okay, like who's doing that? Do I get a VA? Do I do this? Like there's all these elements. I love the way you describe that because all these things have to be put in place. And I'm telling you, as an owner of the business, you ain't going to do that
That's right. I mean,
because
you
you don't have the
could,
bandwidth. You don't have the
but in the
bandwidth.
same way, you don't want me up there putting in my own roof.
That's right.
I don't want you up there trying to figure out all the marketing and sales stuff on your own. I mean, experts, if you want a good outcome, hire an expert.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it's all about. That's I mean, just we just nailed like 9 things like you have to have ready and for your market, and you're all like talking about you're writing a check for a marketing campaign, and
That's
you have
right.
none of that right now. You're going, oh wait a minute, yeah, just tear that thing up, just tear it
That's
up
right.
and back up the truck a little bit, because we got some more stuff to do, but it's it. I love talking about this, Mark, because no one thinks this way. They haven't been burned enough. I'm just
Mm,
saying. But here's the beauty. You talk to guys like Mark, you get me. We've been through it or we know it. And this is what I call time compression. This is why experts and coaches are all really great. We're going to take 10 years of calamity. Okay.
that's right.
We're going to save you misery and bad decisions and costly mistakes and all that stuff into a year. We're going to give you 10 years into 1 year and you're going to kill it. You're going to leapfrog over everybody else by
That's right.
not being held back by all these mistakes. They're a drain. They just beat you down. You just feel like an absolute failure at business because most of us were like guys who did a good thing. We were craftsmen where we could do a thing. We started a business.
That's
We
right.
didn't go into it because we want to be a businessman. No, it doesn't happen that way. It's just we're in a business. I always tell people I thought I was a good businessman because I made a lot of money. I didn't know you had to do all this other stuff in business to actually make it. Okay. So I just was killing it on the money side, but everything else was, crumbling underneath my feet, and 0809 just said, oh, look, let me just take everything from you, Mr. Big
Yeah.
Hitter. Okay.
Some
So,
hard,
cause yeah,
hard learned lessons.
yeah, but you want to find those mentors, those people who are willing to give you that advice, people who have, what do I call it? The self confidence, if you will, or that level of expertise where they're not trying to get the next sale.
Yeah.
Okay, we all want the sale. Don't get me wrong, right? But when you can nurture, the great word, nurture these leads, like
Yeah.
understand if you did an ad and 35 people called from Monday to Wednesday, You got 35, and then you do it again. You get another 35. You start running the numbers. I do this with people. Like, okay, now you know you're going to call them at least 7 times, at least. Okay, 7 times 30. Okay, that's this week. Next week's another 7 times 3. Now, after 30 days, you're at 3,500 calls a month. You going to
That's
do
right.
that, Mr.
Yeah.
Owner? You
Yeah.
going to do that?
You'll
Okay,
go
like
hoarse.
that's
You
right. So
lose
I'm
your
like,
voice.
what's the plan, right? Because you just bought all those leads, but now you can't service them
Yep.
because it takes 7, 10, 12, 14 calls, emails, all this kind of, it's that long process. You have to understand that. Once you figure out your sales cycle, from lead to prospect to client, and all that kind of stuff. Once you get that, you're like, okay, I understand now. Now you can budget, right? You
That's
understand
right.
if I put in $5 today, it's going to be 6 weeks before I get anything back out. And I got to
That's
do
right.
that, So it's, I always try to walk people through that aspect of it so they really have a good understanding of what it takes when you start running these numbers to be successful,
Yeah.
to close these leads. Because only 10% of all people with leads call more than 3 times
That's
and
right.
follow up. So
But but but
go ahead.
90% of sales close after 7 contacts.
That's right. So 10% of the people are making 90% of the money.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing. If you just figure out how to do it, and it's not you who's going to do it. Yeah, if we're speaking to owners, just don't even think about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Your first priority is just like the other 9 things, right? How are you going to handle it? Let's be optimistic and say we're actually going to get a lot of leads. Okay. Then what?
Right.
Okay. Outcome. What's okay? I give you 100 great leads. What are you going to do with them? How are you going to service 100 people?
That's right.
Who aren't ready to go right now, right? So it's really good to run through this stuff, Mark. It's really important that people do this kind of hard work, do this math, and we're good to understand like what is really going to take to close deals. Because marketing is about closing deals. It's not just getting them in the door.
That's right. It's a process, not an event.
Right, right.
Uh,
Talk about that a little bit because I really
yeah.
I got to use that. I got to write that down.
Yeah. I use the phrase all the time, especially because, I worked in sales for so long. And, people have this sort of mistaken mindset that like, well, you make a sales pitch and then they close or they don't, but it's an event. And I'm like, no, it's a process that starts with finding the right people and then nurturing them until they're ready and then helping them evaluate different options and, guiding them through the process of making a decision. And then, ultimately kind of getting them over that hump. Humans hate change. They need some help moving from their previous state where they didn't have a solution for this problem to the new state where they do have a solution to the problem and you're the solution, and then deciding whether or not to advocate for you in the marketplace. Each of those are stages of a process. And it's funny that you sort of called that out because the other thing that, while you're building this process, write it down
Yeah.
because so often I'll see, a business owner, maybe they take the time to sit down at the table and write out, all right, so I'm going to get these leads and then I'm going to do this to, send them emails and call them. And then I'm going to do this to follow up with them a month later and this to follow up with them 3 months later. And so I've got all this worked out. And then they throw that away. Might as well type it up, put it in Google Docs. It lives there forever. Then one day when you do hire a VA or you do hire someone to take over your sales and marketing, you can point them towards that document and they're not starting from scratch and they can start to improve on it. Now you've got something that's, makes your business more valuable, helps it run without you, helps it, start to build. The same thing's true with your sales process. So many, founders, owners, operators are like, man, no one can close the deals but me. Well, why? Well, what is it that you're doing? Write that down, turn that into something that anyone can pick up and do. And then you can start to remove yourself from that sales process and you can do other things to help grow and drive your business. But until you write it down, you'll never sort of distill that process. The other thing that makes it really a process is outcomes. So it's not just we do this, but we do this and then this happens at about this percentage, at about this volume, at about this amount of time. and capturing those three things, now you've got something that you can actually measure results and improve upon, because there's some outcome measuring stick of, well, did I do a good job or a bad job? Well, were you better than average or below average? Starts against the volume, the conversion rate, the time period. And then you can really start to get your business humming.
Yeah, I created a sales flow chart poster.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a poster because there's 33 different steps flowing into each other. If they do this, you go here. They do this, you go here.
Yeah.
This, here's the end. Here's after the sale. Here's what happens
That,
after the sale. And the whole thing is really cool. So I'm like, that there's a lot. People are like, dang, that's a lot. I go,
that's right.
That's selling. That's what all this is about. Here's a really cool, I'm going to release this really cool hack for everyone. Okay. I've been keeping it tight to the vest here, but I think
Okay.
it doesn't matter anymore. Maybe it does, but this, what you're just talking about, write it down. Okay. It's a pain. You're not going to remember. You're going to talk to someone for an hour, close a deal, not close a deal, whatever. What are you going to write down? You're going to remember nothing.
Right.
Okay. You're going to have one or two. The lemonade was really good. She gave me, I don't know, but here's what technology can do for you. You're going to get this thing called Plaud, Plaud. It's a recorder. It's a voice recorder. It ties right into your phone, does that right. You just clip it on your lapel, whatever, on your collar. Here's what you do. You roll up to the job. You're in your truck. You put Plaud on. You turn it on. You get out of the truck. You forget about it. And you go and you do your estimate. You walk the property, walk this. You talk to them. It's recording everything. Then you go back and you upload that into chat. And you go check, dissect that. It'll break it down. Here's this. Here's the objections. Here's this. Here's how we overcame it. You do that for a season. You've got 100 estimates you've just done your sales process. Do you think you'll have the most incredible sales training program ever? You will never hear there's only so many objections.
That's
Once
right.
you've got them, and then I went one step further. I go, now you take that and you train your AI agent that is answering your phones, and it's closing the deal pretty much for you. Now you're
That's
not going to
exactly
a cold or a warm lead. You're going to a boiling over hot lead. You're just going to pick up a check. Okay.
That's right.
Because you, all this stuff, one season, that's a field leveler. That's a game changer for
Yeah,
people.
that's totally a game changer. I wouldn't even say one season. I would say like do it
I
for a
know.
few weeks. It'll
I know.
change the game for you.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you want to remove yourself as the salesperson and the owner, because I encourage all my owners, you should not be selling.
That's right.
I get it, you do it, but that you have way bigger things to do than that. But like you said, I'm really good at it. Cool. And I'm sure nobody else is. Okay. But let's take your inner genius. Let's put it on those recordings. Let's hear your customers.
That's right.
Let's see what you're really doing out there. How are you responding to these things? Right. That is the game changer. And you come back and all of a sudden it'll build out a duplicatable training program. You'll have role play. It'll do all that stuff for you. And you could be a 3-man operation and
So
you will watch it blow up.
I'll add to that too. Um, take that same, mechanism of record yourself in conversations and discipline yourself after every deal, after every engagement to say, so how did you go about finding someone? Who else did you look at? Why did you pick me? Did we live up to your expectations? How could we have been better? You'll start to find out. And remember, we started this conversation about the way to dominate your market is to know your market. Recording those conversations where you ask about what was their process, how did they become aware that they had a problem, where did they look for options, what other options did they evaluate, what criteria did they use to select, and why did they select you? That then becomes the messaging that works.
Yep.
And you do that a few dozen times, you'll gain greater insight on the marketplace than any of your competitors. You'll really know who are the customers that you win with and that you're happy about working with. And then you can say that back out to the marketplace and you'll magnetically attract all your best customers to you right out of the market.
Yeah, that's gold, Mark. That I used to do that too. Like, well, same thing. Like, well, how could I serve you better?
That's right.
I learned one thing too along the same lines. Like something gets messed up on a job. Okay, the people are upset. Okay, my guy screwed something up. I did something. I came up with just this is all you have to say. I totally understand. What can I do to make it right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a fraction of what you think they're going to want. They're going to think you want to start over. They're going to, oh, could you pick up that trash over there in the corner?
That's
And it's
right.
like, I'm like, got it, done. Okay. And they're like, oh, so you're amazing. And it's like, you learn these little things like that. What can I do to make it right? You have to have that confidence, like whatever it's going to take, I'm going to do anyways.
That's right.
And I've lost some
Might as
money.
well lead with that rather than
Exactly.
save it back for the end, because then they'll be disappointed with what you did. Whereas if you lead with what do we got to do to make it right, then they'll be thrilled and that you create that delight.
Yep.
And there's a lot of research into the psychology of what causes sort of raving fans.
Right.
And there's if you just sort of satisfy all of their needs, they'll like you, but they'll never love you.
Right.
Uh, if you surprise them in some way, the sort of the neurochemistry that happens in your brain when you get both what you wanted as well as a little bit of a surprise, because maybe it's just a little more, or it's a
Mhm.
little easier, or it was just a little more forthcoming, that instead of them feeling like, oh, I'm going to have to really negotiate with this guy to get them to make it right that they did X, Y, or Z, if instead you say, hey, you know what? I understand. Meet them where they are. And what do I got to do to make it right? Surprise them, give them some delight. That's when they'll go out to the marketplace and really advocate for you. And I always say, like, people will like you for how you win, but they'll love you for how you lose. And so
Yeah.
when things go wrong, if you can show them that you will overcome that in a way that really creates delight, not just satisfies them, but surprises them, that's how you get those raving fans in the marketplace.
Yeah. And those are your king referrals, right? Those are the people who, if they hear someone else, a stranger talking about roofing,
You
you
got to
got to,
go talk to Richard. Yeah,
Richard's the guy, man. I know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, I just heard you talking about it. I'm telling you, you will
that's
never
right.
be disappointed with this individual. And that's it, right? That's the goal we want as business owners.
That's right.
That's a key element to our marketing
Yeah,
because we know we can deliver that on a consistent basis. That becomes the norm,
that's right.
right? It's what other people aren't willing to do. Again, take those hits if you have to, but turn them around,
That's
make
right.
them work. Do that extra stuff. I always told people, I go, and I got charged a lot. I paid a lot. I got paid a lot for what I did. But I tell people, here's the thing: when people are like, they pay that much, I go, yeah. And you know what else? You know what? No one's ever told me that they paid too much.
Right.
You know what they tell me? You got to charge more.
Yeah.
I go, yeah. Now that yours is done. Yeah. So and they laugh, we say that, but there's, dude, this is amazing. It's like that for 20 years. It was like that. I couldn't top out of the market, I mean, maybe that was my own limitations. I don't know, but I still made a ton of money and it was really, I was the best at what I did. But that kind of affirmation, knowing that you did that, I mean, there's jobs we spent more time cleaning up than we did building, working our way back out and everything else, replacing sod and doing everything, right? The care we took to just perform the work was
Yeah.
a huge thing a lot of people didn't think about. So many different elements. I mean, just a ton of different elements, Mark. And this has been awesome. I
Yeah.
know,
I've enjoyed our conversation, Richard.
this
Thank
is
you so
this
much for having me.
we could do a part two easily. We're just getting warmed up, but man, thank you for just bringing some real gold. This was a lot of great stuff. I'm very limited on marketing people that I bring on
Sure.
because my own stuff. But man, the ones I get like you, spectacular. And
Well, and I'll give a little gift, to your audience. So for anybody listening that is, they want to know how to evaluate what do I need to focus on, where should I focus? So I published a book a couple years back called "Are Your Leads Killing Your Business?" And it's because so many business owners are just obsessed with I need more, I need more, I need more. But in fact, if that quantity is of low quality, it can actually create sort of a death spiral that kills your business. And so I talk in there about how to create the processes to identify and then attract really the right customers for you, how to accelerate those best customers through the sales pipeline, building that process that we talked about of capturing, nurturing, and then facilitating sales, and then activating your clients for fast renewals, larger upsells, more referrals and testimonials, all of those things. If they go to modernrevenuestrategies.com, that's my website, and then slash free download, they can get the whole book, all of the templates and calculators and everything that they need to start installing this into their business today.
Oh, that's awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. And as I always tell my listeners, when someone's given a gift, be grateful and take it. Okay. Just get it, read it, then put it to work. That's part B. Okay. You got to actually go apply it. But
That's right.
when you have opportunities like this, someone like Mark, who's so well versed in what he does, and he's got this book, you can download it for free. Go to the website, take advantage of this, because it's what he talks about in there is what's going to change your business, because you're probably doing it wrong. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Okay, so
Well,
I'm in the wrong group too. I had to finally learn, how to do it right.
well, as you say, they can benefit from my skint knees.
That's it. I love it. So, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us. It's been a great conversation. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.